Welcome to Zoe Crossdressing. The first thing I noticed that morning was the scent of vanilla floating through the house. It had become part of the routine, my stepmother awake before sunrise, standing in the kitchen, humming under her breath while the silver blender purred steadily. The sound was almost soothing, almost hypnotic, like a lullaby you didn't realize was affecting you. My name is Steven. I'm 22, recently graduated, and stuck in that strange space between life is starting and I have no idea what I'm doing. 3 years ago, my dad died, leaving behind a house that suddenly felt too large and too quiet. After the funeral, Emma stayed. She was technically my stepmom, but she wasn't much older than me, mid-30s maybe, with a kind of beauty that always felt unreal. Perfect skin. Elegant posture. Eyes that seemed to notice things before they happened. At first, I avoided her. She was always polite, always calm, always watching. But recently, something had shifted. Her attention lingered longer. Her questions felt more personal. And then there was the drink. Every morning she made it. Pink. Creamy. Almost glowing under the kitchen lights. I used to joke that it was some anti-aging potion. She would just smile and reply, "Some things aren't meant for everyone, Steven." But that day, the air felt different, heavier somehow. I walked downstairs in wrinkled pajamas, still half asleep. Emma stood at the counter pouring the drink into a tall crystal glass. When she saw me, her lips curved into that same flawless smile. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said softly. Her voice was smooth, too smooth, like silk wrapped around something sharp. "Morning," I muttered, heading for the coffee machine. She stopped me. "You look exhausted," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Coffee won't fix what's missing." I frowned. "Missing?" She slid the glass toward me. The liquid shimmered faintly. "Try this," she said gently. "It's special. Made with love." I hesitated. In Emma's world, special could mean anything. She was always experimenting, herbal mixes, beauty formulas, detox blends. Once I'd even caught her whispering to her reflection about perfect balance. Still, refusing felt awkward. So I picked up the glass. It was colder than I expected. Heavier too. The first sip tasted like strawberries and cream, sweet and comforting, until a strange warmth followed, spreading down my throat and into my chest. She watched me carefully. Too carefully. "Well," she asked. "It's good," I said. "Finish it," she whispered. "It'll help you find yourself." That phrase echoed in my mind the entire day. Find yourself. By afternoon, I was alone in my room pretending to apply for jobs. My body felt off. Light. Tingling. Every breath carried a strange energy. When I checked the mirror, I could have sworn my reflection shimmered for a split second. My jaw looked softer. My lips slightly pink. I blinked, and it was normal again. Stress, I told myself. Exhaustion. When I went downstairs later, Emma was waiting. She wore a pale pink dress that somehow looked delicate and commanding at the same time. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Just weird," I admitted. "Weird can be good," she said quietly. "Sometimes losing control is the only way to see who you really are." I laughed nervously. "That sounds like an Instagram quote." "Maybe," she said, stepping closer and brushing hair from my forehead. Her fingers felt warm. Too warm. "But it's true." Before I could respond, she added casually, "Drink more tomorrow. It works best with consistency." That night was worse. My skin felt hypersensitive, the bedsheets almost electric against me. My dreams were vivid and strange, full of melting colors and distant laughter. When I woke up, the mirror shocked me. My face looked smoother. My eyes brighter. When I whispered hello, my voice sounded slightly higher. Panic surged. I rushed downstairs. Emma stood at the blender as usual. She turned, smiled, and said calmly, "You look radiant today, Stephen." She wasn't surprised. She knew. "What's happening to me?" I asked, voice shaking. She poured another glass and handed it to me. "You're becoming what you were meant to be." For the first time, I noticed a faint shimmer in her eyes, anticipation, like she'd been waiting for this moment. The sunlight spilling through the curtains felt warm and golden, but I didn't feel warm. I felt wrong. My skin was too smooth. My hands felt smaller. Even my breathing sounded softer. I stared into the mirror again, heart hammering. The reflection wasn't just tired anymore, it was changing. My features looked more delicate, my lips naturally tinted. "This isn't real," I whispered. "It's just the drink. It'll wear off." But then my reflection moved half a second after I did. I stumbled back in terror. From downstairs, her voice drifted up sweetly. "Stephen, breakfast is ready." Every instinct told me not to go down. But I did. She smiled the moment she saw me. "You look wonderful." "The drink is doing something," I said. My face, my voice. Her expression remained calm. "Your body is adjusting." "To what?" I demanded. "To who you truly are." Something inside me snapped. "I'm not drinking it anymore." She stepped closer, the scent of vanilla wrapping around me. "You don't have to be afraid," she whispered. "Not of yourself." "I'm not afraid." "Then prove it." She held out the glass. "One more sip." My heart pounded. Against all logic, I took it. The moment the liquid touched my lips, warmth exploded through me, racing through my chest, my arms, my skin, my entire being. I gasped. In the kitchen window, my reflection flickered again, softer features, longer lashes, a gentler outline. Emma smiled slowly. "That's it," she murmured. "Let it happen." From that moment on, mirrors became my enemy. And my obsession. Every glance at a mirror made the distance grow. The person staring back felt less like me and more like someone I was slowly being replaced by. That morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds in narrow golden lines across the floor. I stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink, hoping cold water might jolt me back into reality. Maybe I was sick. Maybe this was some bizarre reaction that would fade. But the face in the mirror didn't cooperate. My jaw looked narrower. My skin almost unnaturally smooth, like it had been blurred by a filter. Even my hair seemed different, softer, shinier, falling across my forehead in a way it never had before. I leaned closer, heart pounding. "What is happening to me?" I whispered. Emma's voice echoed in my memory. "You're becoming who you truly are." My hands began to shake. I splashed more water onto my face, but nothing changed. The transformation wasn't fading, it was settling in, like wet cement hardening into shape. Downstairs, I heard her humming again. That same gentle melody that somehow filled every corner of the house. I hesitated at the top of the stairs, dread curling in my stomach, but avoiding her wouldn't fix anything. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, she looked up immediately, her expression lighting with quiet satisfaction. "There you are," she said warmly. "You slept in. You look refreshed." "Refreshed?" I let out a strained laugh. "I look like someone ran me through Photoshop." Her smile remained calm. "You're just noticing what I've seen for a while." "What does that even mean?" I snapped. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she placed her hand lightly over her chest. "I knew you were hiding something beautiful inside," she said softly. "You just needed help bringing it out." "That's insane," I said, stepping back. "You've been putting something in that drink." She tilted her head slightly, almost amused. "Only what you needed." I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but her certainty disarmed me. She didn't look guilty. She looked convinced, like everything unfolding was exactly how it was supposed to be. The rest of the day crawled past. I tried distracting myself with chores, with noise, with anything that didn't involve reflection, but every shiny surface betrayed me. Windows. Screens. Metal handles. I was changing. The strangest part wasn't just how I looked. It was how I felt. My clothes suddenly felt wrong, rough, heavy, uncomfortable. My movements had shifted without permission, subtle but undeniable. Even my voice sounded softer, smoother, like it belonged to someone else. And buried deep beneath the fear, something else stirred. A quiet, unsettling sense of alignment. Like the reflection wasn't lying. I shoved the thought away immediately. This wasn't me. It couldn't be. When Emma came home that evening, she found me sitting motionless in front of the muted television. "You haven't eaten," she said gently. I turned toward her, anger finally breaking through. "You did this to me." She sighed and sat across from me. "Stephen," she said softly, "you're fighting something that doesn't want to hurt you." "Then explain this," I shouted. "My face, my body, everything is changing." Her eyes softened with something almost like sympathy. "Because you needed a mirror," she said. "You've been lost since your father died. Angry. Closed off. Pretending to be someone you're not." I stared at her. "You think this, whatever you're doing, is therapy?" "Not therapy," she replied quietly. "Truth." The word landed like ice in my chest. "Truth?" I whispered. "You think you know who I am?" Her faint smile returned. "I think you're about to find out." That night, I couldn't resist anymore. I went back to the mirror. I needed proof that I was still myself, that none of this was real. But when I looked this time, the reflection didn't share my hesitation. It smiled. Just slightly. Like it knew something I didn't. My pulse roared in my ears as I stepped closer, hands trembling. "Stop," I whispered. "You're not real." The reflection's lips parted. And then I heard it, soft, distant, almost inside my own head. "Trust her." I stumbled backward, breath coming fast and shallow. My knees nearly buckled. The image shimmered, blurred, then snapped back to normal. I stood there shaking, cold sweat sliding down my spine. This wasn't just physical anymore. Something deeper was changing. Downstairs, Emma was humming again. The same haunting tune. Like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. The next morning, sunlight didn't feel gentle. It felt exposing. Every beam seemed to highlight the changes that had crept in overnight. I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling. Even my pajamas felt different, softer, lighter against my skin. The faint scent of vanilla lingered in the air, clinging to everything the way Emma's presence always did. I tried to ignore the mirror. I couldn't. When I finally looked, my chest tightened. My face had softened even more while I slept. My jawline wasn't just sharper or softer anymore, it looked unfamiliar, like someone had carefully reshaped it while I slept. My lips had more fullness, my eyes seemed larger, brighter, framed by lashes that didn't belong to the face I'd grown up with. Even the strands of hair near my temples fell differently, smoother, almost weightless. I pressed my fingertips against my cheeks, as if touch alone could prove this wasn't real. But it was. It was happening. Downstairs, Emma was already in the kitchen, humming under her breath while she poured the pink drink into her crystal glass. She didn't immediately look at me when I entered, yet I could feel her awareness, like she'd sensed me before I'd even stepped into the room. "You sleep well?" she asked lightly. I swallowed. No. I didn't. "Everything's changing." She smiled, tilting her head slightly, her eyes both gentle and piercing at the same time. "Of course," she said, That's why it works best when you're relaxed. Relaxed? I snapped. I don't look like myself. I don't feel like myself. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Stephen, you are yourself, she said softly. Just closer to the version you were always meant to become. A chill ran through me, not from cold, but from the certainty in her tone. Her calmness was terrifying, and strangely magnetic. You've gone too far this time, I muttered, trying to cling to anger. She gave a quiet laugh. Control is an illusion, she said. You'll understand soon. By mid-morning, the changes weren't limited to my face anymore. They were in my body. My posture had shifted without permission. My balance felt different, my gestures smoother, more fluid. Even walking across the room felt unfamiliar, like I had to relearn how my weight moved. I caught myself standing in front of the mirror, awkwardly adjusting how I held my shoulders, how I placed my feet, experimenting, almost practicing. The realization hit hard, I couldn't tell anyone. Not friends. Not coworkers. Not my dad's old acquaintances. No one would believe me. And Emma's presence made denial impossible. In the mirror, I suddenly saw her behind me, even though I hadn't heard her approach. You're noticing the details now, she said softly. That's good. Awareness is part of the process. I spun around, frustration boiling over. This isn't a process. This is. I stopped. There was no word for what this was. A curse? A transformation? A manipulation? My voice, slightly higher than yesterday, caught in my throat. She placed her hand on my shoulder, warm and steady. You're ready to let go, she murmured. You can resist, but why fight what's already inside you? Hours slipped by in a haze of confusion. The drink hadn't only altered my appearance, it had stirred something internal, something I didn't have language for. Every mirror felt like betrayal, yet I couldn't stop looking. Every movement in my subtly changing body felt both frightening and exhilarating. By evening, I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the living room, studying myself. The figure staring back was me. And not me. My hair now brushed past my shoulders in soft waves. My frame looked slimmer, more refined, my movements instinctively controlled. My eyes shimmered with an unfamiliar vulnerability that made my chest tighten. I reached up slowly, fingers trembling, touching my face. The reflection matched perfectly. Yet it felt like more than an image. It felt like a promise. A warning. A challenge. A small sound behind me made me jump. Emma's voice followed, calm but firm. Are you ready to accept who you are? My throat tightened. Panic pressed against my ribs. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to be ready. But somewhere deep inside, curiosity flickered. And curiosity, I was learning, was dangerous in this house. By night, exhaustion finally dragged me into sleep, but sleep offered no escape. I dreamed of walking through unfamiliar streets in heels, of laughter, of strangers' eyes lingering on me. Dreams where my reflection whispered secrets I couldn't quite understand. I woke drenched in sweat, heart racing, and the first thing I saw in the dim light was my reflection again. Changing. My jaw had softened further overnight. My hands looked more delicate. My chest. I didn't want to look. But I did. The transformation was accelerating. Unstoppable. Downstairs, Emma hummed the same melody, patient, waiting, certain. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. I was losing control. And what frightened me more was that part of me didn't want to stop it. The next morning, I woke with a strange mix of dread and anticipation. The changes were undeniable now. My reflection no longer showed subtle differences, it showed someone new. Softer features. Brighter eyes. Movements that felt almost naturally graceful. I traced my jaw with shaking fingers, feeling the unfamiliar smoothness. A shiver ran through me, not entirely from fear. There was something intoxicating about being different. About carrying a secret no one else could see. The house was quiet, yet Emma's presence felt everywhere, like a pressure at the edges of my thoughts. When I went downstairs, she stood at the counter again, the silver mixer humming softly. She looked up and smiled. "You're early," she said. "You look interesting today." "Interesting?" I repeated. She studied me like an artist studying a canvas. "Yes," she said. "You're changing. And it's beautiful." "Beautiful?" I whispered. "This is terrifying." Her laugh was soft, musical. "Sometimes the most frightening things," she said, "are also the most freeing." Her words echoed in my head as I poured myself another glass of the drink. I hesitated, staring at the pink liquid as if it belonged in some other world. But the pull was too strong. Just one sip. The moment it touched my tongue, warmth spread through me again, into my fingers, my chest, my entire body. Energy hummed beneath my skin. In the kitchen window, my reflection shimmered. And shifted. Subtly. I watched, breath caught in my throat, as the person staring back became someone I was both terrified and unable to look away from. I stepped away from the mirror, my pulse racing so hard it echoed in my ears. Fear was there, sharp and undeniable, but so was something else. A rush. A thrill I couldn't ignore. Over the next few hours, curiosity took over. Alone in my room, I opened drawers and closets I had never paid attention to before. I tried on fabrics I'd never imagined wearing, soft materials that brushed lightly against my skin, fitted cuts that changed the way I stood, skirts that felt unfamiliar against my legs. Each outfit altered my posture, my balance, even the way I breathed. It was strange, a mix of vulnerability and quiet confidence. The mirror became less of an enemy and more of a companion. It didn't question me. It didn't judge. It simply showed what was there. And little by little, I began noticing pieces of myself I'd never allowed to surface before. But excitement brought guilt with it. What if someone saw me? What if Emma wasn't helping at all, but manipulating everything? By evening, I was walking through the house wearing one of the outfits, a flowing blouse with fitted pants. My posture had changed again, more assured but still uncertain. Every creak of the floor sounded like an alarm going off in my head. Then Emma appeared in the doorway. Her eyes gleamed with quiet amusement. "You're exploring," she said simply. I froze. I was just. She stepped closer, smiling gently. "Yes," she said. "Just discovering yourself." Her acceptance unsettled me more than criticism ever could have. I had expected judgment, maybe disapproval, but instead she offered encouragement. It made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. Later that night, I sat in front of the mirror again, replaying the day in my mind. My body had shifted further. My face barely resembled the person I'd been a week ago. But the changes weren't only physical. Something inside me, emotionally, mentally, had shifted too. There was fear. But there was also freedom. A realization settled deep in my chest. I couldn't go back to who I was before. And instead of only terrifying me, that thought sparked excitement. Somewhere in the house, Emma hummed softly again, the same patient, hypnotic tune, like she was guiding something invisible. The next morning, the reflection staring back at me felt almost unfamiliar. My features were softer still. My movements instinctively lighter, more precise. My hair fell in smooth waves around my face, framing eyes that seemed brighter than I'd ever seen them before. I pressed my fingers to my cheeks, stunned. This wasn't just appearance anymore. It was instinct. Gesture. Presence. My body and mind felt aligned in a way I had never consciously acknowledged before. Panic flickered under the surface. But curiosity, and that undeniable thrill, kept me rooted in place. Downstairs, Emma was already preparing the drink again. The silver mixer hummed quietly while sunlight caught the glass, making the pink liquid gleam like something precious. She looked up at me, her gaze calm and focused. "You look ready today," she said. "Ready?" I repeated. "For what?" Her smile carried that same knowing certainty. "For yourself." Her words were both comforting and terrifying. Each sip of that drink had pulled me further into this unfamiliar version of me. And somewhere along the way, the possibility of turning back had faded. I lifted the glass. Hesitated. Then drank. Warmth spread instantly through my body, from my fingertips to the ends of my hair, like energy humming beneath my skin. In the kitchen window, my reflection shimmered again, and with it came a surge of confidence I didn't recognize but couldn't deny. The rest of the day blurred into moments that felt small but monumental. My movements grew more fluid. My posture naturally poised. I experimented again with clothes, soft blouses draping over my shoulders, pants shaping curves that hadn't existed days ago. Every glance in the mirror carried the same mixture of awe and uncertainty. Who was I becoming? And did I want this? Emma remained present but never forceful. She didn't command, she nudged, guided. Her calmness made my resistance feel almost unnecessary. "It's okay," she told me once, resting her hand lightly on my shoulder. "You're allowed to explore who you are." Her touch sent a shiver through me, not fear, but heightened awareness. Every heartbeat felt louder, every sensation clearer. By evening, I stood alone in the living room, practicing small gestures, the movement of my hands, the tilt of my head, the curve of a smile reflected in the window. From every angle, the same truth appeared. I was changing. Yet I was also discovering something. Beneath the excitement, anxiety lingered like a quiet hum. What if I couldn't stop? What if Emma had planned all of this from the beginning and I was already too far gone? I shook the thought away. This wasn't just fear. It was reality. And somehow, it was exhilarating. Night settled over the house, and I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing that when morning came, the reflection waiting for me might be even more unfamiliar, and even harder to look away from. My mind felt like a storm, wonder and panic colliding at once. Every sensation was sharper than it should have been. The brush of fabric on my skin, the rhythm of my breathing, even my heartbeat felt louder, more present. This wasn't only happening to my body. Something deeper was shifting. From somewhere in the house, Emma's humming drifted through the air again, soft, soothing, almost hypnotic. It carried that same feeling of patience, like she was observing from a distance, waiting for something to unfold exactly as planned. And in that moment, a realization hit me with equal parts dread and excitement. The life I had known was over. Whatever I was becoming wasn't temporary. It wasn't reversible. It was emotional, mental, permanent. And buried beneath the fear was something unexpected, a quiet, electric anticipation for what would happen next. That afternoon, the house felt unnaturally still. The refrigerator's low hum, the ticking clock on the wall, and my own shallow breaths were the only sounds breaking the silence. I had just finished trying on another outfit, a soft pastel blouse, fitted pants, my hair pinned back with careful precision. I stood staring at myself, still trying to reconcile the person in the mirror with the identity in my head. I had grown more comfortable in this new form. More aware of how I moved, how I occupied space. But a knot of tension remained tight in my chest. Emma's calm influence no longer felt merely unsettling. It felt controlling. Then the doorbell rang. My heart jumped into my throat. We almost never had visitors. No friends stopping by. No coworkers. No neighbors. Emma's voice floated from the kitchen, calm as ever. "Answer it, Stephen. Don't leave someone waiting." I swallowed and walked toward the door, nerves buzzing under my skin. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a tailored suit holding a folder. For a split second, I thought salesman. Then recognition hit me like ice water. He knew my father. I opened the door. "Hello," I said, my voice automatically softer than it used to be. "Stephen," the man said, studying me closely, confusion creasing his brow. "You're different." Just a new look," I stammered. He stepped closer, eyes scanning my face. "Your father mentioned you were living with your stepmother." "Emma." Adrenaline surged through me. There was something in his tone, not casual curiosity, but assessment. "Yes," I said carefully. "That's her." His gaze narrowed slightly. "Is she here?" "She's busy," I replied quickly. "Can I help you?" He shifted his weight, holding up the folder. "That depends. I came regarding your father's affairs. There are documents that require your signature." Panic clawed up my spine. Documents. Signatures. If he really looked at me, if he noticed. I stepped aside anyway. "Okay, come in." As he entered, self-consciousness washed over me. Every step I took seemed exaggerated, the subtle grace in my movements, the softness in my voice, the unfamiliar shape of my body. He looked around the house, clearly registering the feminine touches in the decor. But his attention kept returning to me. "You've changed," he said quietly, almost to himself. I stiffened. "What do you mean?" He gave a faint smile. "Your father would have been surprised," he said. "But I think, pleasantly." I blinked, unsure whether it was a compliment or an implication. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. He asked questions, handed me papers, waited for signatures. Each movement I made felt magnified. Every reflection in picture frames or glass surfaces made my heart skip. And all the while, Emma's presence lingered like a shadow, unseen but undeniable. At one point I excused myself to get water, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the glass. When I returned, his eyes were on me again. "You're extraordinary," he said finally. "Has your stepmother always had this effect on you?" I froze. The question carried layers. Was he noticing the physical changes, or sensing Emma's psychological hold over me? I couldn't answer. My throat felt tight. In the window behind him, my reflection stared back, unfamiliar, confirming everything. Then the sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke the moment. My heart leapt. "Is that Emma?" he asked. I glanced toward the window, panic surging instantly. If she walked in now, if he saw us together. My reflection shimmered again, mirroring my rising fear. My body suddenly felt fragile, exposed. Every instinct screamed to hide. Then I heard her voice behind me. "Stephen." Soft. Commanding. I turned slowly. Emma stood there, flawless and composed, her gaze moving between the man and me. A faint smile curved her lips, like she had anticipated this exact situation. The man's expression shifted immediately, picking up on the dynamic between us. "You orchestrated this?" he asked cautiously. She didn't deny it. "I guided him," she said simply. The tension in the room tightened like a wire. My heart pounded so hard it felt audible. My body trembled, not just from fear, but from the strange, intoxicating intensity of the moment. A painful truth settled in. I wasn't just Stephen anymore. I was someone else, shaped by her influence, caught in a transformation I still couldn't control. And now someone from my old life was witnessing it. The room suddenly felt too small. My father's associate watched every movement I made, every tremor in my hands, his sharp eyes flicking between Emma and me as if he could see invisible threads connecting us. I wanted to explain. To say this was temporary, that I was still the same person. But the words wouldn't come. My voice, lighter, softer, sounded foreign even to my own ears. Every syllable revealed more than I was ready to admit. Emma moved across the room with effortless control, her presence quiet but commanding. She had that unsettling ability to feel both gentle and dominant at the same time, like a shadow you only noticed once it was already wrapped around you. Her eyes stayed on the man, but when they flicked toward me, there was something else there. A signal. A challenge. "You've seen it now," she said smoothly, her tone almost playful. "There's no hiding who he really is." My stomach nodded. Who I really am. I didn't even know the answer anymore. The figure in the window, the person in the mirror, the body I had lived in for the past week, all of it felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. I could feel control slipping through my fingers, and that terrified me. But underneath the fear, there was still that pulse of excitement. The man cleared his throat awkwardly. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his brow creasing as curiosity fought with caution. "Is this natural?" Emma gave a small shake of her head, smiling faintly. "It's an awakening," she said. "He's finally becoming himself." My chest tightened. I didn't know whether to laugh, scream, or break down. Every instinct told me to resist, to push back against whatever this was. But deep down, I knew resistance wasn't working anymore. I wasn't only Stephen now. I was something else. Time dragged strangely after that. The man focused on the documents, though he kept glancing up, his attention drifting back to me again and again. I shifted under the weight of being observed, feeling exposed in ways I couldn't explain. Then a sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. My heart jumped violently. The man looked up, startled. Emma didn't even flinch. "It's nothing," she said calmly, though the faint curve of her lips told a different story. That was when it clicked. This entire situation, the visit, the timing, the pressure, wasn't random. It was a test. Not cruel, but deliberate. She wanted to see how I would handle the world like this, how far I had come. For a moment, I was alone near the window. Late afternoon sunlight spilled across the glass, wrapping my reflection in warm gold. My hair rested softly over my shoulders. My hands looked smaller, more delicate. My posture elegant without effort. The reflection almost felt alive, silently confronting me. "This is you now." My pulse quickened. I touched my cheek, tracing the unfamiliar smoothness. My chest tightened, not only with fear, but with the electric thrill of carrying a secret no one else understood. And the more I accepted it, the stronger I felt. Finally, the man set the documents aside and looked directly at me. "Stephen, or whoever you are now," he said slowly, studying me. "You're different. Something has changed you. I can't explain it, but it suits you." I froze. "Suits me?" Emma smiled, clearly pleased. "I've guided him," she said. "But the change itself, that belongs to him. He's learning to embrace it." My stomach twisted again. I wanted to argue. To deny everything. But I couldn't. Not anymore. And somewhere beneath the fear, a spark of exhilaration ignited. This transformation, this secret, was mine. For the first time, I felt the intoxicating power of holding something no one else could reach, no one else could fully understand. By the time the man finally left, papers signed and questions only half answered, my whole body was trembling. Not just from stress, from the intensity of everything that had happened. Emma passed by me, her presence lingering like perfume in the air. "You handled it well," she said softly. "But there's more to come." My breath caught. I knew she was right. The danger wasn't over. The transformation wasn't finished. And the identity I carried now was fragile, balanced somewhere between discovery and exposure. A realization settled over me with equal parts awe and fear. My life had changed forever. I wasn't the person I used to be. Yet even in the uncertainty, I couldn't deny the thrill running through me. In the window, my reflection seemed almost to smile, as if asking, "Are you ready for what comes next?" The next day arrived heavy and gray. Rain streaked the windows, mirroring the tension inside me. Every sound in the house felt amplified, the drip of water from the sink, the distant rumble of thunder, the quiet hum of the refrigerator. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. I moved carefully through the rooms, hyper-aware of my body. The changes weren't just visible anymore, they shaped how I thought, how I reacted, how I carried myself. My steps were lighter, more intentional. Every reflection reminded me. I wasn't fully Stephen anymore. But the secrecy still carried that dangerous thrill. Emma appeared as she always did, composed, elegant, impossible to ignore. Yet today there was something sharper in her expression. A seriousness that hadn't been there before. "Be careful," she said quietly. Her voice carried layers. A warning. And a promise. You never know who might start paying attention. Her words were quiet, almost casual, but they landed heavily in my chest. The man from yesterday had noticed something, not enough to understand, but enough to question. If he could sense it, others could too. The thought alone made my skin prickle. Before I could respond, a sudden knock rattled the door. My pulse spiked instantly. When I opened it, a neighbor stood there, smiling warmly, holding a basket wrapped in cloth. A simple gesture. Friendly. Ordinary. Yet panic coiled inside me like a tightening spring. "I just wanted to welcome the new resident," she said. Resident. The word echoed in my head louder than it should have. Not guest. Not visitor. Someone who belonged here now. Someone people would start recognizing. Watching. I forced a polite smile, hoping my trembling hands weren't obvious. As she stepped inside, I became hyper-aware of everything, the way I stood, the way I spoke, the angle of my shoulders. Her eyes moved over me with polite curiosity, but every glance felt like scrutiny. In the kitchen window, Emma's reflection appeared behind me. "Breathe," she murmured softly. "People only see what you allow them to see." I wanted to argue, to confess how exposed I felt, but her steady confidence anchored me. The neighbor left minutes later, completely unaware of the emotional storm she had stirred. When the door closed, I exhaled shakily, realizing how fragile this new existence truly was. One suspicious look could shatter everything. That evening, Emma approached me again, her presence calm but edged with seriousness. "You're progressing," she said. "But outside this house, people won't be so gentle." I knew she was right. Every movement now mattered. Every choice carried risk. Then she added, almost casually, "Someone else is coming soon. Someone more observant. Be prepared." My stomach dropped. Another test. Another set of eyes. Later, I sat by the window watching rain streak down the glass, the house wrapped in tense silence. The thrill of secrecy still hummed beneath my fear, intoxicating, dangerous. I couldn't deny it anymore. Part of me was drawn to the edge. By morning, the world outside gleamed with leftover rain, streets reflecting pale gray light. Inside, the air felt thick with expectation. I moved carefully through the hallway, catching sight of myself in the mirror, softer, more refined, almost delicate. Almost someone else entirely. Emma appeared beside me, flawless as always, but her gaze held a sharper intensity. "Today," she said quietly, "we see what you're capable of." Before I could ask what she meant, the doorbell rang, sharp, decisive. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Go," Emma whispered. "Trust yourself." I opened the door. A woman stood there, composed, observant, holding a folder against her chest. Her eyes swept over me in a single, assessing glance that lingered just a fraction too long. "You must be Stephen," she said evenly. "I'm here regarding some matters connected to your father's company." I swallowed and stepped aside to let her in, every nerve screaming. As she walked past, her attention never fully left me. She noticed everything, my posture, my gestures, the subtle changes I still barely understood myself. Behind me, Emma's voice came low and steady. Show her who you are now. Fear urged me to retreat, to shrink back into what I used to be. But something else pushed forward, the same dangerous thrill that had been growing inside me all week. Minutes stretched as the woman reviewed documents, occasionally looking up with analytical curiosity. I felt like I was standing on glass ready to crack beneath my feet. In the window, my reflection shimmered faintly. You can't disappear anymore. And for the first time, I realized it was true. At last, the woman gathered her papers and rose to leave. Before stepping away, she looked straight at me, really looked, as if trying to understand something just out of reach. You're different, she said quietly. I can't explain how, but something about you has changed. And honestly, it works. My chest tightened at the words. It works. Beside me, Emma gave a small, satisfied smile. He's discovering who he's meant to be, she said simply. After the door closed and the house fell silent again, I sank into the chair by the window, my hands still shaking. Every sensation felt amplified, the ticking clock, wind brushing the glass, distant traffic humming somewhere beyond the neighborhood. In the reflection, a stranger stared back at me. Familiar, yet not. Mine, yet somehow separate. Excitement, fear, secrecy, anticipation, they fused into one sharp, electric feeling that pulsed through my chest. My life had shifted onto a path I couldn't step off anymore. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. That evening, the entire house felt tense, like it was waiting for something to happen. Shadows stretched across the walls under the soft lamplight. Even ordinary noises, footsteps, appliances humming, my own breathing, sounded louder than usual. I stood before the full-length mirror, smoothing my hair and adjusting the blouse Emma had insisted I try. The person staring back looked composed, almost confident. The softness of my features, the subtle curves of my body, the effortless grace in my posture, everything had changed. Inside, though, exhilaration and panic clashed violently. A sudden knock shattered the quiet. My heart leapt into my throat. From the kitchen, Emma's calm voice drifted toward me. Answer it. Don't overthink. I still hesitated. But eventually I opened the door. Standing there was someone I never expected, my father's business partner, with an assistant beside him, both carrying folders and wearing expressions of polite authority. Their attention moved through the room, and then landed squarely on me. The assistant blinked, clearly startled. You've changed, she murmured, almost under her breath. I don't even know how to describe it. This was it. The moment I had feared. Exposure. Judgment. Discovery. Emma appeared at my side, perfectly composed. Yes, she said smoothly. He has. And he's embracing it. Their gazes lingered, studying every movement I made. I felt as though I was being measured against some invisible standard. In the window behind them, my reflection seemed to waver, daring me to lose control. You're different, the partner said slowly. But somehow, it suits you. Again those words. And again, a strange thrill spread through me, recognition mixed with fear, acceptance tangled with uncertainty. Time stretched painfully as they reviewed documents and asked questions, each second feeling like a test I might fail. Only later did I realize the truth, Emma had arranged this. Not to humiliate me, but to see whether I could stand in the world as I was now, without collapsing. Every instinct had told me to retreat, to cling to the version of myself that used to exist. But that person was gone. In his place stood someone new, unfamiliar, yet increasingly authentic. When the visitors finally left, papers signed and suspicions unspoken, I leaned against the doorframe, trembling with exhaustion. Emma rested a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did better than you think, she said softly. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the mix of adrenaline and relief. The secrecy, the danger, the transformation, they had merged into one undeniable rhythm inside me. In the mirror across the room, my reflection shimmered again, confirming what I already knew. I wasn't just Stephen anymore. I was someone else, striking, fragile, powerful, uncertain, and not yet fully free. Night settled quietly around the house, rain tapping against the windows in a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I found myself standing in front of the mirror again and again, studying the person I had become. This reflection was mine now. And with it came something unexpected, a growing sense of confidence. A hidden strength. The secrecy had become part of me. Every gesture carried two meanings. Every breath held tension and possibility at once. I felt exposed and invincible simultaneously. But that balance was delicate. I knew it. Because at any moment, with a single knock at the door, everything could still unravel. The secret I carried, my new identity, felt fragile, precarious, balanced on the knife's edge of discovery. A sudden sound in the hallway froze me in place. Footsteps, deliberate and soft. My heart hammered. Stephen. Emma's voice floated from the shadows, calm, melodic, laced with authority. You've done well, but the final test is coming. I swallowed hard. Test? What do you mean? She didn't answer at once. Her eyes glimmered in the dim light, calculating, inscrutable. You'll see. Just be ready. Before I could process her words, the doorbell rang, sharp, insistent. My pulse surged. Who could it be this time? Another visitor? Someone tied to my father's world? Or someone else entirely? Emma's soft hand on my shoulder grounded me. Go. Open it. Trust yourself. Breathing in sharply, I opened the door. A figure stood there, partially cloaked in shadow, eyes scanning me with sharp precision. My stomach twisted. They paused, taking in my appearance fully. Behind me, my reflection shimmered in the glass. Vulnerable. Exposed. Yet alive in a way I hadn't expected. You're different, the figure said, voice low and deliberate. I came to understand why. Panic clawed at me. Every instinct screamed to hide, to retreat, to return to the familiar Stephen I had been. But their gaze held me fast, forcing me to confront who I had become. I glanced at Emma, her calm presence paradoxically comforting and unnerving. She didn't step in. She let me face it, navigate the unknown myself. Time stretched taut, each second a high-wire act. I realized then, my life had irrevocably shifted. I was no longer simply Stephen. I was someone new, unrecognizable, transformed in ways both dangerous and mesmerizing. The stranger stepped closer, curiosity blazing in their eyes. My pulse raced. My breath caught. Just as I was about to speak, Emma's voice cut softly through the tension. Don't speak yet. Let them see who you truly are. The room seemed to hold its breath. Rain pounded against the windows outside, storm and chaos echoing the turmoil inside me. Every reflection, every shadow, every heartbeat reminded me how fragile this secret was. And then it hit me, this encounter would define everything, my secret, my transformation, my identity. Everything balanced on a razor's edge. The stranger's gaze locked onto mine, probing, measuring. My reflection shimmered again, as if whispering, "Are you ready to embrace everything?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark, fleeting bursts. The storm roared, and the tension became almost unbearable. Then, the scene went dark. Viewers, if they could see, would be left hanging, desperate, questioning. Would I reveal myself? Would I be discovered? Or would I survive, unscathed, mastering this new self? The house was silent again, save for the rain tapping on the windows. Emma's presence lingered behind me, calm, watchful, but tonight her gaze carried a sharper edge, warning, challenge, promise. I touched my face, tracing the delicate softness of my skin, the subtle arch of my brows, the curve of my lips. I barely recognized this version of me. And yet, underneath the panic and fear, a thrilling pulse of exhilaration surged. I had become someone entirely new, someone powerful in ways I had never imagined. Another knock at the door jolted me. My pulse skyrocketed. This visitor was unexpected, unfamiliar. I swallowed, trying to steady my trembling hands. "Stephen," Emma's voice floated from the kitchen. "Go. Face it. Remember everything you've learned." I opened the door. Standing there was a tall, commanding figure, a woman I hadn't seen before. Her presence filled the threshold, sharp-eyed, poised, exuding authority. She scanned me slowly, deliberately, from head to toe. "You've changed," she said, her tone low, precise. "I need to know why." My reflection shimmered behind her in the glass, revealing the soft, elegant figure I had become. My instincts screamed to flee, to hide, to retreat to the old familiar self. But Emma's hand on my shoulder reminded me, "Let them see who you truly are." The woman stepped inside, holding a folder, but never breaking eye contact. "I don't understand what's happened to you," she admitted. "But it's astonishing. You look different. You move differently. Something about you, it's unexplainable." My chest tightened, caught between fear and exhilaration. Should I feel insulted? Or powerful? Every word was a spotlight on my secret, on what I had become. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. She asked about my father, about documents, about my life, yet each glance she cast at me held fascination, intensity, a quiet reckoning. I moved with care, gestures smooth, voice steady, hiding the tremor beneath. Emma's eyes never left me. Slowly, I understood this was a test, not just of composure, but of embracing this identity fully. My reflection shimmered again, almost daring me to falter. Deep inside, I realized I had a choice. To hide behind the old self, or step fully into this new being. Finally, the woman closed her folder, nodding. "I may not fully understand," she said slowly, "but there's something about you. Something different, compelling." My chest tightened. She was perhaps the first person outside Emma who had glimpsed the truth of me. As she left, the rain hammered harder against the windows. Emma stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. The world outside is watching. Your journey has just begun." I sank into a chair, trembling, exhausted, yet humming with adrenaline. My reflection in the window shimmered, calm, confident, whispering silently, "You're not the person you were. You're something else now. Are you ready for what comes next?" I had no answer, only certainty that my life had changed forever. The storm outside promised more challenges, more revelations, more transformations. The next morning, sunlight barely cut through the gray clouds. The house felt tense, almost holding its breath. I walked through the hallway, every mirror reflecting this soft, elegant, unrecognizable version of me. I had grown accustomed to it, and yet, beneath the surface, the fear of discovery remained. Emma, calm as ever, poured her coffee with measured precision. Her gaze followed me, quiet but sharp, full of expectation. "Today will be different," she said almost casually. "You're about to meet someone who could change everything." I froze. Change everything? My stomach twisted. Another visitor? Someone from my father's world? Or a stranger capable of exposing me to the world? Before I could ask, the doorbell rang. Sharp. Urgent. My pulse thundered. Emma's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Go," she whispered. "Trust yourself. Remember everything." I took a deep breath and opened the door. Standing there was a man I had never seen before, tall, imposing, impeccably dressed in dark attire, exuding an air of authority that made the room feel impossibly small. The secret I carried, my new identity, felt like a fragile glass sculpture, teetering on the edge of shattering. A soft sound in the hallway froze me mid-step. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. My pulse skipped. Stephen. Emma's voice drifted from the shadows, calm, melodic, yet threaded with authority. You've done well, but the final test is coming. I swallowed. Test? What do you mean? Her eyes caught the dim light, glinting with an inscrutable calculation. You'll see. Be ready. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. My chest tightened. Another visitor? Someone connected to my father? Or a stranger I wasn't prepared for? Emma's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. Go. Open it. Trust yourself. I drew in a shaky breath and opened the door. A figure emerged from the shadows, partially obscured, eyes sharp, scanning me like a predator sizing up its prey. My stomach nodded. They paused, drinking in my every movement, every curve, every nuance. My reflection in the glass behind me shimmered, fragile yet alive. Vulnerable, exposed, and intoxicating. You must be Stephen, the man said, low, deliberate. I've been sent to evaluate something unusual. A chill ran through me. Evaluate, unusual. Could he sense the changes I had carefully hidden? Emma appeared silently beside me, calm and commanding. Don't worry, she murmured. Let him see who you've become. He stepped inside, deliberate, almost ceremonial. His gaze swept the room briefly, but returned to me as if drawn by some invisible thread. You're different, he finally said. There's a quality to you, unlike anything I've seen. But I need to know how far it goes. Every instinct screamed to flee, to shrink back into the familiar Stephen I had been. But Emma's calm steadied me. I felt the surge of my new identity coursing through my veins. I straightened, lifted my chin, and met his piercing stare. He nodded subtly. Interesting. Very interesting. The realization hit me, this wasn't merely a test of secrecy. It was a test of control, of confidence, of fully embracing who I had become. Every gesture, every movement, every note of my softened voice was under scrutiny. Hours passed like minutes. Questions were asked, subtle observations made. Every glance at Emma seemed to seek approval, every pause a silent warning. Then, unexpectedly, he brushed a fingertip against my shoulder. Innocuous, professional, but my heart stuttered. You're remarkable, he said softly. Yet there's something hidden. Something I haven't seen. Hidden. My mind whirled. Was it my transformation? My secret? Or something even deeper? I glanced at Emma. Her faint, knowing smile promised answers. You'll see soon enough, she whispered. The man departed, leaving a silence heavy with tension. I sank into a chair, trembling. My reflection shimmered in the window, elegant, confident, anxious. Outside, the storm mirrored the chaos inside me. I realized then that this journey wasn't just about transformation. It was about exposure, identity, and control. The next morning, the house carried an oppressive weight. Gray light filtered through the clouds, painting the rooms in muted tones. Every mirror reflected my careful, deliberate movements. Hands trembling, I adjusted the blouse Emma had helped me choose. Every curve, every detail of my appearance was a weapon and a liability. Emma appeared quietly at my side. Today is not about who you are, she said softly. It's about how the world sees you. How you face it. A knock rang out sharply. My pulse leapt. Emma's approving nod grounded me. Go. Face it. I opened the door. The man from yesterday stood there, flanked by two others, their presence immediately overwhelming. Their eyes swept me, cataloging every detail, every line, every gesture, every subtle trace of my new identity. You've changed, the first man said, reverent, deliberate. I need to know how far this goes. Fear and exhilaration collided in my chest. Emma's hand steadied me. I lifted my chin, met their eyes, and let the reflection in the glass guide me, delicate, elegant, unrecognizable, undeniably me. They moved through the room, questioning, observing, testing. I responded carefully, every word measured, every motion precise. Pauses stretched painfully, each glance at Emma raising the stakes higher. One misstep, and everything would collapse. Hours of tension passed, the air thick with expectation. Then, one stepped closer. "You're remarkable," he said slowly. "But there's something hidden. Something you haven't revealed yet." Hidden. My chest tightened. Could he see through the surface, past the transformation, into the essence of who I had become? Emma's eyes sparkled faintly, pride and challenge intertwined. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "The truth is coming." A small compact mirror appeared in her hand, a signal I had learned to recognize. Now. Trembling, I adjusted my posture, straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin. My reflection shimmered, daring me to falter. The 3 sets of eyes bore into me, and for a heartbeat, the room seemed to vanish. "You are different," the tallest man said finally. "And I can see, it suits you." Relief, pride, exhilaration surged together. My secret was safe, for now. Yet deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The world outside was watching. My journey had just begun. Rain pattered against the windows. I sat by the living room pane, tracing droplets as they ran, my reflection calm, confident, and unrecognizable. Emma appeared silently, carrying the small tray that had sparked everything. "Drink," she said, voice soft but commanding. "Tonight, you face what you've been preparing for." I hesitated. The liquid glimmered in the cup, and memories of past transformations raced through me. Slowly, I drank. Warmth spread, tingling, heightening my senses. My posture straightened, my movements softened, exhilaration coursing through me. Another knock shattered the quiet. My pulse thundered. Emma's eyes narrowed. "Go. This is it." I opened the door. A woman stood there, sharp, commanding, almost predatory. Recognition lit her gaze. "You," she said, voice tight, "I know what you've become." Panic surged. My secret, my transformation, my identity, at risk of exposure. I glanced at Emma. Her expression was unreadable, almost a dare. "Trust yourself." The woman stepped inside, her eyes drinking in every detail. "I don't understand how this happened," she admitted. "But it's real. Beautiful." I shivered, exhilaration and fear interlacing. Every gesture was analyzed, every movement under scrutiny. "But why?" she demanded. "Who allowed this transformation?" Emma smiled faintly. "I did," she said, serene. "And he's ready." "Ready?" My chest tightened. The room seemed to shrink, every shadow alive. "You've become remarkable," the woman continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But there's more. Something hidden. I must see it myself." The tension was unbearable. My reflection shimmered in the window, confident, anxious, daring me forward. Emma handed me the compact mirror. "Now." I straightened, lifted my chin, and let every movement declare who I had become. The woman's eyes widened, admiration and disbelief mingling. "You are unrecognizable. Yet entirely yourself." Relief and exhilaration washed over me. But before I could savor it, another knock rattled the door, heavier, deliberate. Emma's eyes flickered with rare concern. "It's him," she whispered. "The one who changes everything." My stomach dropped. The ultimate challenge, the moment that would define everything, had arrived. My secret, my transformation, my identity, everything hung by a thread. The screen fades.